You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Happy to have everybody with us today, and really happy to have Mich Hancock with us to share her energy, her wisdom, her positivity, and so that everybody knows where that's coming from and what you're doing. You're CEO of 100th Monkey, a digital marketing agency that specializes in, I love this, human-to-human interactions.
Yes.
She's also the co-founder and license holder of TEDx St. Louis. That's really interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about that today. An independently organized TED event, as well as the host of your podcast, Mishmash Podcast. And you focus on guests who, again, I think we'll talk about this, notably kind and accomplishing important work in the world. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Cynthia.
And I'll say, blessed to have people in our lives, because last minute we made a change and you stepped in. And
hey,
again,
it worked out. The universe was working with us.
The universe, right? Put it out there, trust. We were just talking about that trust, put positive energy, and it comes out to you. So we talked about your CEO of 100th Monkey marketing agency. I've got two questions here. One, we'll talk about what a digital marketing agency is, but where the name come from, 100th Monkey, that sounds interesting.
Oh, it is. This is a great story. Okay, so there actually is something called the 100th Monkey phenomenon. And the story goes that there were a group of scientists. They were studying a colony of monkeys on this little island in Japan. And they were throwing sweet potatoes out to the monkeys. Well, these sweet potatoes would get covered in sand. And one day, one of the monkeys was like, ew, I've got a better idea. So the monkey took the sweet potato over to a stream, washed off all the sand. And the other monkeys were like, that looks like a really good idea. And the scientist said by the 100th monkey, it became the new behavior, the new way of doing things. So when I started my company, we were really focused on social media marketing. And I thought, that's what social media is. It's going to become the new way of doing things. And it made sense. So there you go, 100th monkey.
And how long has your marketing agency been around?
13 years now.
So if we rewind back 13 years, you're probably right. I mean, the iPhone's, just about that old. Right. I'm sure that was very forward thinking.
Well, and it was, here we are in the Midwest, and in the Midwest, social media still hadn't really, it was there and people were using it for personal reasons, but it hadn't really crossed into the business world here yet. So, I was running around telling people I was doing social media marketing, and the feeling I got from a lot of folks were like, gee, you seem really nice and cute, but oh my gosh, do I have to do another marketing thing? So, but when it came time, when people started really seeing that, wow, we're gonna need to go there. I was a wonderful bridge in the sense that most of my clients were older and were really confused by this whole thing we call social media. And since I was around their age, I was a real safe bridge to get over there.
And thinking of just the digital marketing that the agency does, what can you explain some of those things? Or for somebody who, I know enough about social media, but not enough to go out and say, here's the way to plan a marketing campaign through all the different types of social media. What is it that you help these people do?
So it's a huge world. So we're very boutique in our approach, because we don't have like, here's our packages and we're going to fit you into a package. We're more like, what's going on? What do you need to accomplish? And let's figure out how to get there. So in the beginning, it really is an investment, because we're figuring out, who are you? How are you going to show up? And then how are people going to respond to you? What do we need to tweak and change along the way to make it all work? It can be everything from, okay, we're putting together a really good content posting schedule for you, and then we're going to run campaigns for you. What do those campaigns look like? It could be an email campaign that leads to something. It could be an advertisement that leads to a landing page, and then of course within the different businesses, you have to consider their sales cycle. Some sales cycles are very quick. I want an apple pie. I'm going to go buy it. But something that may be thousands of dollars is going to be a longer sales cycle. So we have to fit into, all right, is the longer sales cycle, we're doing a drip campaign where we're just, little by little leading people down the path, hopefully to become a client. It's really fun. I mean, it sounds confusing to some people. And, some people are like, oh, this hurts my head. But that's why you hire a company like mine, is we actually think it's so interesting. Let's figure out how to get your people to pay attention to you so that this can lead to your company's growth. But I will tell you, over the years, what I've discovered is that marketing is like a detective, and marketing starts to show the things that really are not working within your company. So as a result now, we find ourselves often also helping with sales and business development and even within the person that's in charge of the company. Sometimes there's some things they need to work on personally that they're bringing to the office that are not helpful for the people that work for them. So it's really become like business therapy at this point.
I imagine when you entered that, you had no idea that that's where it would lead.
Well, no, but it's also growth on my own too, So I don't know that when I started 100th Monkey, I would have been the best at doing business therapy, but I, over the years, have worked on my own business, worked on my own personal self, where I've gotten to this place, I'm going to be 60 next year. So I'm thinking, I'm wise now. I've been through a lot. I've done a lot of things. And I've been really very aware over many years of what I needed to work on so that I could show up the way that I should show up. And I don't like the word should, that I can show up for the people that work with me and for my clients, and that I'm seeing now, hey, there's some places where I think we could work on you or your business a bit more to help bring you to this space.
Was there an instance or a time where that was that aha moment where we said, oh, we're just doing marketing, but wow, what they really need is all of this?
Yeah, it really just happened very organically. I would have clients that I'd be working with, and then I would say, hey, I've noticed, or I think, and they'd say, wow, well, can you help us with that? Sure can. And then, we would just move into that space. And I don't know what to call it. I think you and I were talking before this about coaching, and I don't like the word coaching because it feels like a space that is just, there's a lot of coaches. And this is a bit more than coaching because it's just really looking at some very inner levels. I mean, I am at a place of confidence in my life where I feel that I can just say to people, hey, I'm going to be really transparent with you, and I'm going to share something I've noticed. And then they take it or not,
Yeah, it's almost like a deeper level of coaching where you think about, this is how I think about it, all these, soccer teams, you have the coach who's strategically figuring out who needs to play where and how we're going to make these plays. But so many of those organizations have brought on, and like the professional organizations have brought on the mindset coaches and the different, trying to do more of that whole transformation versus maybe staying at the surface level of what's going on and what do we need to fix versus getting under the why, the hows, the who's,
It's the maturity of our human race, And so even though you look outside and you think, whoo, what the heck is going on? I mean, one of the things we have to understand is like what is happening with us internally shows up externally. So what's going on with each of us internally, that this is what the world looks like right now. So I have felt for a very long time that it's your duty as a human being to work on yourself so that starts to be reflected on the outside. And here we are, and it's the way we're going. And so the maturity of our human race, wow, we're getting all kinds of things, but this is where really I'm at right now. The maturity of our human race is work on yourself internally. And that is the most amazing, beautiful gift that you can give to the rest of the world, because you working on you is you working on everyone.
And you can do that for yourself individually, those with you, but those businesses more working on them, the inside, versus just what is being shown. How can you know what to show on the outside on the social media if you don't know the values and the energy on the inside?
And you want it to be aligned, right? Because how many times have we been let down by a company that their messaging was this, they told us we're that, and then you find out, oh, that's not who they are, you know? And so you want it to be aligned. You want the messaging that you're putting out there to show and mirror what's going on with the organization. So if there's things going on with the organization that need to be addressed, let's address it and heal it and figure it out. And then it's very magical if you can figure all this out, and if you're willing to go there, because not everybody likes to be shown their blind spots. I love being shown my blind spots. My team has 100%, you see a blind spot, tell me. I want to be shown that, because that means that's something I need to work on. Not everyone appreciates that, but if they get to a place where they're ready to go there, we would love to help them.
And isn't that interesting? I feel like when I'm not that far behind you in age, when we were growing up, you had to look perfect, be perfect, don't admit a blind spot or a mistake. And now we're learning that really that vulnerability and authenticity is how you propel yourself forward. How did you, one, I assume those you work with probably love hearing that message from you and knowing that they're in that safe place.
Right.
How'd you build that culture and environment?
I believe it was just organically, it was just, I've always been really good at being upfront with who I am. This is who I am, and this is what you get. I don't like putting on airs, when people would say, oh, you got to show up this way and be all dressed this way. And, I'm like, I'm not, that's just not how I am though. And that would feel weird. I'm pretty much going to wear hoodies and tennis shoes wherever I go. That's just who I am, which I appreciate, right? You said your dress how you feel most comfortable. For this, you want people to show up authentically. And because I so crave that for myself, I started craving it within others. So those are the people that I would be attracted to.
So what you mentioned earlier, I wrote it down, was like what you do, what's happening with you internally is showing up externally. So
yes.
Appreciate that, value that for yourself. And then it becomes more of, I would assume, just the day to day, you're able to bring that externally to those around you.
And I think, personally, if people would recognize this within themselves too, if you're sitting in your house and it's a hot ass mess, there's stuff everywhere, you have to sit and look and think to yourself, oh, is this what I look like on the inside? Because this, and so that's why, you clean up the place, right? Clean it up, get everything in order, put places where they need to go. And then that can also help you internally. So it's a beautiful dance. And if we're willing to really look at everything around us, even with the people you attract in your life, they're a mirror to you. So someone you may attract to your life that you're like, I don't really like this in you. You have to sit back and think, is that in me somewhere? Do I need to heal that within me? Because this is what this person is showing me. To me, it is fascinating. It is just fascinating what we can do. And it makes life so much more interesting than, oh, I'm going to look this certain way so everybody thinks I'm successful, and I'm going to be this certain way so people think I'm really powerful, even though inside I'm crumbling and I'm not feeling powerful. I think it's more interesting to be like, ugh, I don't feel powerful. How do I get there? What do I need to do?
Right.
Where is my power?
Those walls of I'm really feeling this, but on the other side of the wall, I'm going to pretend to be this.
Right.
It shows. It comes through externally, but I think it also, that alignment, I've done several presentations on aligning with your core values. After a while, it's painful to be out of alignment.
Right. And it shows. People know it.
How did you, when you said coming to really know your true self, how did that come to be? How did you figure out who really all encompassing is Mich?
It's an endless amount of work. It doesn't ever end. I think, as long as you are here on Earth, you're working on yourself. Earth school's hard. Earth school is really, really hard. Earth school gives us so many challenges. And, Earth school is a place where we feel so separated from everything. And so you're kind of like going it alone, you think. You think you're going it alone. But at some point you realize, oh, I'm not going it alone. I'm really connected to everybody. And when you start to feel that connection, beautiful, magical things can happen. But for yourself, I feel like I've been working on myself forever. And a lot of it is getting quiet and meditating. So I meditate at least an hour, if not 2 hours a day.
Wow.
Which you think, oh, how do you have time for that? Well, part of that, I believe, is that when you make time for meditation, weirdly, you get really organized. And so I feel like I can bend time now. I feel like I can like sit down and work for 3 or 4 hours and go, oh, I got so much done. I got so much done in like 4 hours. I never got that much done in 4 hours. But I believe it's because I'm meditating and everything just kind of gets organized, and magically the things that don't really matter go away, and the things that really do matter rise to the top, and you pay attention to that.
So some people might be listening and saying meditation. I imagine sitting on the floor with crisscross applesauce or one of those weird configurations that I'm not sure my legs can do anymore at this age. And I'm just sitting there going, what is, but I've heard from others, meditation can be various things. What is meditation for you, or how should people go about that?
Well, it has definitely shifted over the years. But so let me start with beginning, because, people are like, I can't meditate. And I get why, because I used to do this too. So you lay down. I like laying down. Lay down, you get all comfy, and you're like, okay, clear my mind. And then all of a sudden, oh, you forgot to call so-and-so. Oh, you forgot to put this on the grocery list. It's like your brain kind of goes, now they got your attention. There's a whole bunch of stuff you forgot, So I had to get to a place of trust where I could take whatever would come into my mind, and I would just say, I'm going to put that in that cloud over there. So I would put all the stuff that would come into my head, I'll put it in the cloud, and then later on, I'm going to trust the cloud going to let me know what I put in there, rather than me hopping up and try to write it down or something. Over the years, it just got to be where now I can lay down, my mind goes clear right away, and I just am quiet.
And you don't fall asleep?
And I don't fall asleep. Or sometimes I do, and I wake up and I meditate more. I mean, sometimes I'll meditate before bed, and then I'll fall asleep, and I'll wake up at some point in the middle of the night and I'll meditate more. I don't have like this set time I have to do it. It's just, I'll feel like I just need to get quiet for a little bit and go meditate. Now, I live by myself. So that is, let's put that out there. I mean, there's no children running around going, Mom, I'm really hungry right now. So there's the difference, which I totally understand.
That doesn't happen. What are you talking about?
Kids don't ever really need your attention. So, I am in a space where I can really, really dedicate that time. When there was a child in my life, there were just times I had to try to fit it in as best as possible. But, you get to a place where you get to be really quiet, and you can say to the people around you, gonna go meditate. Everybody leave me alone for a bit. I'll be back with you,
That's great. Share it with the people around you, what you need and are going to do, and let them create a safe, sacred place for you to be able to do that. But if you don't share it.
And what does it teach them? Right? It teaches them that when I get older and I have my own needs, I don't have to be here for everybody else. There are times where I got to take care of my own needs. I think it's a beautiful thing for children to learn that parents get to have their own time for needs.
Right. We need to teach them young that it's okay to say, no, I need this, or this is my personality and needs are different, and it's okay to do it in my way. But I think about, and I've heard other people say that go, 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 go in our culture. You're successful, or, wow, I don't know how you get everything done if you're going. But at some point, just like a car, if you run in the red too long, the car is going to break down.
Right.
So you have to be able to get back into a normal state or a slower state maybe for that vehicle versus always running in the red. And so when people might be listening and say, well, I don't have time for that. I got all this stuff to do. Like you said, it's more about taking that time, pulling back so that it bends time, creates more space.
Well, and it's also a call to practice discernment, like what really is going to feed me? What really is my passion? Are you saying yes to a whole bunch of things so you can distract yourself and not get quiet and deal with the hard stuff? But when you are willing to feel the pain, for example, because people want to stay away from pain, but really, if you've got something stuck inside of you, you've had some kind of trauma in your life that you have not released, you need to go in there and experience it one more time. Just go experience it again and just get it out, and then you're done with it. But a lot of people distract themselves from having to deal with pain when really they're filled with pain. They just distract themselves from having to deal with it or to honor it or to even say it exists.
It's funny to me that physically, if we, had a swollen or torn ankle or knee or whatever, we would give ourselves permission to go to the doctor, to get it checked out, to, do the surgery, the rehab, because we know if we leave it unchecked, uncorrected, it's going to deteriorate.
Right.
But when we start dealing with the mind or the heart and the soul, it's, weak or easy to push off.
Right. And it is considered weak, right? Because the strong thing, the story we've told ourselves is, well, I dealt with that, I'm done, that happened, but I don't have to, that's in the past kind of thing. Whereas really it's not in the past. You're carrying it with you every day. The other thing I think that people need to realize is it's something that may have happened to you when you were a child at 5 years of age. As an adult, it could be something like, oh, I wet my pants when I was, in kindergarten in front of everybody, right? And so now as an adult, you're like, that's so silly. But when you were 5 years old and that happened to you, that was really traumatic. And so you have to honor that 5-year-old you that went through this really painful experience and release that emotion around all of it. Don't let it stay all stuck in there, because it is creating other issues in your life.
It's sometimes my husband and I will talk about these podcasts and say, oh my gosh, it's amazing that topic came up when it did. This is something over the last few months I've been working on really. And again, great marriage, 3 healthy, awesome kids, great life. I love what I do for my career. So things should be fine.
Right. I should have nothing to complain about.
Right. And why would, clearly whatever's happened in the past, I'm over because I'm doing well.
Right.
But it's really helped me go back and say, okay, why today maybe do I, when confronted with maybe loudness or just, I don't know, criticism, or why do I feel like I go into a shell?
Right.
Oh, okay. It was safer growing up to not be out there, to not say anything, just to kind of hide off in the corner and not be seen.
Right.
This is why I guess, except for this podcast, easier to pull back and retreat and not be seen.
Yeah. And so that gives you this amazing opportunity, and so if people could put into their awareness of that, why do I think this way? I don't like that I think this way. Why do I feel this way? I don't like that I feel this way. That's the very beginning of exploration. Okay. Now there's something in me that makes me want to hide. Why do I feel like I want to hide? I've got no reason to hide. That's when you can start working on this, do this inner work that I promise you, it's not easy, but it's so worth it.
It's freeing.
It's so freeing.
Like you got these rocks
And
on your back or something, and you can just throw them off.
you also, you get to a place eventually where you can just like kind of fall back and surrender and know that, I'm going to say the universe, people will say that God, whatever you want to call that big old power out there. It's that kind of trust it sounds so simple, but it's so hard to get to. But the more and more you work on it, it is amazing. It's just amazing. You can, I often think of surrendering, when I start spinning with something. Because I get spinny, everybody gets spinny, and and there's these things in my world. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I spin with this every time this happens. I'm so much better now at saying, I am not going to spin with this. I'm just going to trust what needs to happen will happen, which is hard because sometimes what's happening, you're going to want to label it as bad. This is bad. This is a bad thing. Well, what if you quit labeling things as good or bad? What if you label them as, this is an experience I'm going through right now. And instead of labeling it, I'm going to think to myself, what am I to learn from this?
Do you have one moment that sticks out to you as...
Recently, yes, I do. And so I'm going to call it the financial spins. Talking to you, this is perfect, right? And I didn't have to have financial spins. There'd be times where it'd just be a bill that would come in that I wasn't expecting. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this bill, I didn't expect it. My world might crumble. I would just get, but it's financial spins. Sometimes there were reasons for the financial spins, but it was so exhausting. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Well, little things started to happen where it was like, the cat got really sick and I had to take it's my daughter's cat. I am going to do anything you can imagine to keep this cat healthy. And so I am now spending, wow, that was a big vet bill. And I was like, okay, but I went through it. I am done with those financial spends. Oh no, the universe knew it was not done yet. So then another thing happened. Well, finally a big thing happened. We had a client that owes us a lot of money. I don't know if we're going to get paid on it. But what it did for me was, that's the number I needed in order for me to finally get past the financial spins. I had to really sit with that, process it, move through it, get my freak out of the way, like, oh my gosh, of course I'm going to live. Of course I'm going to be fine. But I had to work through it, and it was really tough. But now I'm on the other side of it. Now, the client's not off the hook. I'm not going to be like, everything's fine now. Thanks for my big lesson, client. Learned everything. No, they're not off the hook because there's an imbalance here. I'm still going to pursue that, but I'm no longer in this just, feeling devastated and I can't move and what if and blaming everything on it, right?
Yeah, you can't ignore the feelings because if you ignore them, it's kind of like, I'm not going to think about a pink elephant. Well, what are you thinking about?
Right, exactly.
So I can't feel that way, and don't shame yourself for feeling that way, but you need to work through it, and it takes time and practice. I mean, everything we do in life, and we think again about sports or band or playing an instrument, whatever it might be, we think of that practice. Well, all of this stuff takes a lot of practice too. Right.
And you got to wonder, now that I look at it as a dance now, and I look at this client and think, wow, what's going on with you? Because this client, I would say, has a hell of a lot more money than I do and certainly could afford this, right? So then you're thinking, what is going on with you that you can afford this, but you're going to not pay the people that you owe so that, I don't know, maybe you're keeping up your own status, that like, I've got to show up this way. I have to have everybody thinking I'm this way. So it's really interesting. And I would love to work with this person as well. I mean, I know I could help them. I can see a lot of things that they need to work on, but I don't know that they're ready.
Well, and that's when you said, well, I wonder what's going on with them that would make them, and I thought, wow, that's very big of you to be able to come at it that way with curiosity. Again, not that you're going to let them off the hook, but curiosity, maybe a little bit of grace to say what's really underneath it all, which sounds like everything you're doing, and what is all that internal underneath stuff doing to feed us to this external point.
Because there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whenever there's any kind of an imbalance going on, there's a lot at play. So what is at play here? There's healing to be done, right? So I worked through mine. I healed mine. I'm hoping he can heal his at some point.
And we hadn't really talked about it yet, but we were talking about before the podcast started that working with companies. And yes, we talked about the digital marketing, but you really get in and say, what are your values? What's your message? And then you can often see different places like sales, business development, or other things underneath that need help and work with. So you've gone from maybe a niche marketing, and even then maybe social media marketing is special niche, to now helping the company grow and develop beyond that. And then what you just mentioned is then people have started coming to you to say, well, not even coming to you, man, this is really a problem. And you're like, well, do you want help with that? Do you want me to help you with that?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing that now too.
Yeah.
Unadvertised.
Yeah. Right. I mean, because it's true. I mean, at this point, I feel like when someone has a challenge, I totally can help them get through it, whatever it might be, whether it's personal, business, or both. I don't have a certificate or a degree, but I do. It's
the degree of life and earth, right?
Yeah, it's a higher thing. If the universe were like, here is your certificate of completion, Mich, you get to go help people. But it's that I've always felt really called to work on things. Like even in my 20s, I was like, am I supposed to be like this? I don't want to be like this. How do I not be like this anymore? This doesn't seem healthy. And then I would really work on it. And I don't know why, but I've just always been called to work on myself. And now I feel like I'm in a place where I really do, I can help other people, whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah, as I was sitting here thinking, what's all the money that's spent on, I'm not saying this is wrong, but gyms, personal trainers, makeup, hair stuff, anything to make us feel good physically, externally. Wow, what could that do if we flipped it on the inside and said, it's okay. In fact, that maybe is where you should start.
Right.
Is spending that time, energy, work. It's painful, just like doing new exercises at the gym is painful, muscles. But you almost need to tear the muscle apart to build it further. And you kind of have to do that internally.
Yeah. I mean, you do. You have to be willing to just crack yourself open, which is really hard. And it does take vulnerability, and people have a hard time with vulnerability. But, and this is a perfect segue into what I do at TEDx is, when you think about the TEDx stage, there's a red rug. Don't move from that rug. Stay on that rug, speaker. And there's nothing in front of the speaker. There's no podium. They are right there with the audience. And that is a big part of these talks, because these talks are you're giving a gift to the audience. Part of that gift is your vulnerability, which helps you connect with the audience. And for people to see that, a personal story often comes into play with a TED or TEDx talk. And the reason why is because many times the important work that person is doing, there's a personal story back there that caused them to get to this place to say, and then I did this, But sharing that story and that openness is what gets people to want to listen to you. If you get up on a stage and you're like, hello, my name is, and I am great, and I am great, I am so great, and everything's perfect in my life, people are going to be like, well, bully for you, whatever. How does this help me? I'm dealing with I want to hear how you overcame. I want to hear what's the passion behind all of this. So, yeah, being willing to show your true self is important.
I think that's what launched us into this podcast personally, is when I could hear other people's stories or get to those times in their business where there was a challenge or an issue and it was like, oh, I can learn something from this. I can become better from what they shared. That's what, again, this podcast is. We talked early on. It's like, we don't have questions. We've got a little bit of stuff on a piece of paper, but we'll see how it goes.
Right.
And it's more about sharing that story and what's unique and important to you that somebody out there is going to connect. But if you don't tear down that wall of who you should be and what you should look like and how you should present yourself, then it's actually, oh my gosh, it's kind of funny. We just did a weird yearbook post for my middle child, her 8th grade year. And it's I don't know how to even, it's crazy funny. Like, it's over. No one can think like my husband. And she's just like him. And we had some people questioning, like, oh, is that right? Is that good? And they figured out the joke in the end and thought, oh, that's hilarious. But I will tell you, I've been struggling since I heard other people weren't sure they liked it or what judgments they were making of us. I've internally struggled a little bit about, well, my profession and this is who I should be. And I need to be liked. And their opinion of me, as my husband said, in my mind, their opinion of me was more important than my own opinion. And he's like, you have the right to have your own opinion of yourself. So anyway, literally last night we were going through this. So
that is awesome though. And it is hard. I mean, it's like, here I am, a woman that has no hair. I've got alopecia. I've had it for a really long time. And I had to go through a really difficult process because, I mean, it was like you think of the process that people go through when someone dies, all the grief and the various stages of denial and what have you. That's what I went through when I was losing all my hair. And I was like, I can't show up in the world as a woman without hair. Oh my gosh, that's your crowning glory. Hair is a big deal. I can't do this. But at a certain point, it's like, well, this is what it is. Like, what am I going to do? Hide? No.
What helped you get through it, or how do you, Mich today, what would you say to Mich as she's going through that initially?
Well, I think you do have to go through the grieving process. I think that is an important step. But what happened with me is then I was wearing a wig and people thought I had fabulous hair that always looked perfect because I was young, you know what I mean? And so, it just seemed like her hair is always perfect. But I literally woke up one day and I swear I heard a voice that said, "You're done with the wig." And I thought, what? Are you kidding? Why? What is it hurting that I'm wearing this wig? But I trusted. And so I did not have cute stuff to put on my head like I do now. I had a bandana. And I got up that day, heard this, and I heard trust. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I put a bandana on my head, and I was going out that day and seeing a lot of people. Like, I was going to the library. I knew all the librarians. I was going to the dry cleaner. I was going all these different errands that I was running, seeing all these people that see me every week. And my first stop was the library, and I walked in, and, I could tell the look on their faces was, we know her, we don't know her, like something's off, And I'm walking in, and the one lady went, "Mich?" And I went, "I broke up with my wig." And they were like, "We didn't even know you had a wig. We thought you always had perfect hair." I'm like, "No, it's $40. I can show you where to get it if you want one." But it was me. I stopped hiding. That's how I looked at it. I was like, you know what? There's no reason to hide. This is who I am. If someone decides I don't want to be her friend because she doesn't have hair, well, what the heck is wrong with you? So, it just was me, like, showing who I really am.
We talk with the kids a lot, and just others. It's if someone doesn't like you or what you're doing, it's really, as we talked, it's on them and probably coming from them somewhere internally.
Yep.
And you be you. Now, as long as, I always say this, you be you, which hopefully means you're a good person, and you're
Well, yes,
obviously
right. If you're like a serial killer, don't be you.
right. Let's stop that.
You have a place you need to go. It's not walking around amongst the people.
What were the reactions that you received, and were there any surprising ones when you showed up? Truly, you broke up with your wig.
It was fine. It was well received. It was. I didn't have anyone say, "Oh, gosh, really put the wig back on," except for one. There was actually, I was seeing this chiropractor at the time who was like, "Well, do you want to walk around that way?" And I was like, "I do, and you're no longer going to be my chiropractor," because that was a really odd thing to say to me. But no, I mean, it was fine. And to this day, and and so now, of course, this is something I find challenging, right? Because there's a part of me that's like, this is this, and then there's another part of me that's, what is the emotional reason behind this is considered an autoimmune disorder. And an autoimmune disorder is the body attacking itself. So of course in my head, I'm like, why am I attacking myself? Why would I do that? And so that's a thing I'm working on, right? There's always something to work on, right? I don't think we ever do not have something to work on. If you're here in the flesh, there's things you should be working on.
And it sounds like it could be overwhelming, but I think the longer you wait to work on it, the more it's going to compress and compact and get worse.
Layers, it's the layers, right? It's just layers and layers and layers. And if you're willing to work but still be at peace, so it's like, I'm at peace with this. I'm not like freaking out, like, oh my God, my hair's got to grow. It's more of, this is the experience right now. I feel like I must go through this experience for some reason. It's teaching me lessons. It's teaching other people lessons. I'll just keep working on it. If I die a bald woman, I'm not going to feel like I've not been successful. Just like, oh, I guess I just really had to be that.
Well, in the TEDx, you rolled into that, and I was glad you did, because I knew people are going to be like, wow,
oh, yeah.
TEDx St. Louis.
That's a big one, right?
How did that come about? How did you become the owner, or the
co-founder? So I'm the co-founder along with Steve Summers. And so it really did start with Steve. Steve had read Wired magazine, and there was a TEDx Bozeman, Montana. And he's like, well, wait a minute, do we have this in St. Louis? So we actually started as TEDx Gateway Arch. And then at some point, TEDx, they wanted everybody to stick with the city name. And so there was a TEDx St. Louis, but that license did come up at one point. And so the TEDx organization asked me to take that. And so now I'm the license holder for TEDx St. Louis. But it really was, I loved TED Talks. I found them to be amazing for a number of reasons. One, they're short, 18 minutes or less. I was always the person that would get the book and then get really frustrated that the first half of the book was the history and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I bought this book for this one reason. I would have to go to the middle of the book. I don't want to hear all the other stuff. I want to get to what I want. And that's what a TEDx talk is. It's like very refined. We actually now are asking our speakers to keep them at 10 to 12 minutes. So if you can imagine taking this really big idea and distilling it down into that time frame, it takes a lot longer to put together a TED. Like, this is easy. I can talk for an hour and a half on anything, right? But tell me to talk for 10 minutes, every single word becomes very important. So our speakers spend 40 to 60 hours preparing for the stage. They work with speaker facilitators that really help them to craft that talk. In case anyone is wondering, there is not some magical formula to a TED or TEDx talk. It's more of a vibe, a feeling. And what we're looking for is, do you have an idea worth spreading? Do you have something that makes people sit up in their seats? We do get a lot of motivational, inspirational speakers, and it's really not that. It really is, yes, you're going to be inspired or motivated by this person, but it's because you're doing something that makes people think differently. So we just had one of our talks that we had that TED highlighted was from Holly Fan, and it was her question was, who decides that food is authentic? And you may not have thought of that before, but you probably do it. Somebody's gone to a restaurant and like, yeah, but is it authentic? And then what does that do to the chef? Because now the chef is like, am I supposed to only cook what you consider to be authentic food? Or I'm a chef, I'm creative, I might do some things that I want to do. And so it makes you think differently about when I go to a restaurant. Am I putting this on this restaurant that it must be authentic? Or, well, I'm not going to come here anymore if it's not authentic, right? You know, it's weird. It makes you think differently. So that's what we're looking for. Play with my brain. Make me start to like look at things and go, I'll be darned, no, I never even thought of that. Or now I'm going to do things this way because I learned that from a talk.
Play with my brain. I like that. Is that one of your favorite TED Talks, or do you have some that stick out in your mind?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many good. In fact, okay, at our last event, we had a talk by Regina Masati, who is out at St. Louis Zoo, and she's an expert in wolves. And her talk was called "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf?" And it was all about, you know, wolves are extremely important to human beings. I mean, they are very key to a lot of what happens in our environment, and we've demonized them. And, you know, whenever the wolves are always the bad, the farmers are, we got to kill the wolves, you know. And in fact, I just sent to Regina, there's some vaccine or something out there that's like a flu vaccine or something that's using the wolf as the bad, mean flu coming in. You know, and I was like, Regina, here's how you're making me think differently. Now I'm like, why did you have to use a wolf to be the bad, why does it have to represent the bad flu, you know? And so she wanted the audience to see wolves as a very important part of our ecological system, as opposed to this horrible, mean animal running around that just wants to hurt you. That's not what they want to do.
Right. Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's great. So again, it's something that just plants something in your brain that now I'm different. I think of wolves in a very different light now than I would have ever before.
How often does TEDx hold? What does that look like? It's a day of programming, and how often? And
so we have 2 events a year. One in May, which is our innovation event. We have got one in coming up at the end of October, and that's our women's event. And it usually is about 3 or so hours in length. You know, so you come in, we at times we have something called Innovation Alley, which is just showcasing some cool things in St. Louis, and you watch the talks and you get to hang out with a bunch of really nice, open-minded people, because that's our audience. They're curious, they're open-minded, they want to learn more. It's just an amazing group of people that show up, and so this is your opportunity to experience TED Talks live, because most of our talks do end up on TED. Every TEDx operates differently. So some TEDx's just, they like somebody's talk and they're like, hey, we like your talk, put it on our stage. It does not necessarily mean it's a TED Talk. And so we really want TED Talks. So that's why we are highly facilitating our speakers.
Got it. Yeah, it's funny how the universe speaks to you. Just yesterday or over the weekend, somebody at Minetta had shared that the TED Talk coming up. So I was looking, I think my calendar, I can't make that work. And here we are, like somebody else canceled.
There's tickets for you, Cynthia. We're talking about that after the podcast.
All right. But, the other thing you said there was, when you go to TED Talks, you're going there with people who are open-minded, curious, and circles back to a lot of what we said is, what energy are you putting out there? Mm-hmm. You will then attract. So by you, you guys building this program, which is truly about play with my brain, think about things differently, you're attracting those people back to you.
Right. I mean, and I love it. I mean, those are the people I want to hang out with. I want to hang out with people that are, you know, a lot of what's going on, when you see people on our stage, that's a person that's changing the world in a significant way, that they are doing something that is really amazing and necessary. And a lot of times it's something that you wasn't even on your radar, you know, and you're like, wow, I would have never thought of that. That's so cool that this person thought of that. So they're incredible people. And they're also people that, you know, they're very humble people. They are very powerful, but they've got a beautiful balance of their power and their humility. And they want the best, and their passion is right there to do something that is to, you know, move something forward in that positive way. And I love positivity. I don't want to be like toxic positivity, you know, like the person that's just, you know, blinded to everything and, you know, completely optimistic all the time. But I think that if you're able to look at an issue and either see it in a different light or do something about it, because, you know, that's like an important thing, or at least see like, what is the beauty? What's that silver lining behind all of this? Like, how is this showing us that we need to do something better? And then what are we going to do? How are we going to heal it?
What's the lesson in it for me? What should I be learning here?
You know, and I mean, there's a lot of lessons going on right now in the world. Very difficult, horrible, terrifying things are happening. And so instead of us pointing fingers and going, they're so terrible, that bad, it's, wow, what's going on with us internally as human beings that this is showing up in front of us, you know? So we're not off the hook, but the way to heal all that is to start with yourself.
And goes back to something you said earlier that, I don't know, warmed the heart a little bit. It's like, oh, I wonder what that client is going through that's making them be this way or act this way, or, you know, making them, why they're showing up the way that they're showing up.
Right. What needs to be healed within you? And just think about, like, anybody, you know, because of course you're going to deal with people you're like, that person makes me crazy, you know. What if instead of being mad at that person, I'm not going to talk to them anymore, what if you went to them and said, can we have a transparent conversation? Because there's this tension and I don't want tension. Can we talk? Now, that person may not be responsive to it. You can't help that. But at least within you feel like, hey, I reached out and tried. You know, and that person may be like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's talk about this. What is going on? You know, how can we work with each other? How can we get to a place where we're not pissed off at each other all the time? You know, wouldn't that be so lovely, as opposed to, I'm going to go home and complain about this person again to my family, you know, and your family's like, yeah, I know how they drive you crazy. You know, it's really working with that beauty of that potential of a much more beautiful and loving relationship.
I think that's the important part of it, right? Is it's really difficult. And I think, again, doing a lot of reflecting on growing up, my husband and myself, you were told, you know, don't talk back. Just do what you're told. Just eat all that food, eat those things. Doesn't matter if you like it or not, because I told you to do it. In school, sit down, raise your hand, don't, you know, afraid to make a mistake. And yet, so we put up all these protections and we're told we can't be that way, but really now we're blocked from having those difficult conversations because we don't know how to have them, because we were told don't stand up for yourself.
Right.
And we need to do it. And then we wait so long, looking at myself in the mirror. We wait so long, then it builds up and we get angry, and then it just blurts out, versus if we would come early with curiosity, transparency, and really call it out, put it out there on the table. Yeah. I feel like, as I wrote it down, I feel like there's been some tension. Am I perceiving this? And do it from a space of
like
love.
From a place of, here's what I'm feeling, which, you know, that's what you're feeling. No one can say you're not feeling that way. Well, no, I am. Well, it's my feelings, so I kind of know them. Right. But you brought up something interesting there about the parenting thing too, because, I looked at parenting as, I had been given this gift of this child that chose me, and that I get to sort of, help this beautiful being work through life. So and my daughter's name is Mickey, and I always looked at Mickey as being, I respect this child, and I was going to allow her to blossom, and I was going to support that blossoming. And, so, I think about, I've got a fun story that I love to share, and it's, I went into her room one day, and she had colored all over her table. Now, I couldn't get mad at her because she didn't know. I never said, by the way, don't ever color on furniture. That was not something I said. So I walked in her and she's like, Mommy, look. And I was like, it's so beautiful. But, and so I admired the lovely work. And then I was like, okay, but can we talk about something? And I probably should have told you this, but we probably shouldn't draw on our furniture. And she's like, oh no. I'm like, it's okay. I never shared it with you. So we're going to keep this as is because it truly is beautiful. But from now on, let's stick with paper. That was it. And you think of how many parents would just get really mad at the kid, and the kid's like, what the heck? I thought I did something amazing and you're all mad at me. And that just creates confusion. So it was a learning experience for her. Don't draw on the furniture, but we do, as parents, I so wish parents could just step back and think, what is the most respectful thing I can do for this child right now?
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody the other day. I feel like sometimes what I've learned to be a leader, I learned from being a parent. And would you then, in business, go in and yell at somebody because they did something you never told them not to do? So how do we become transparent, communicate? A lot of what we've been talking about today is communicating.
Yeah.
Like really opening up and really communicating from a place of love and asking questions.
And it's so freeing because you're not trying to, I'm going to be this way. I'm going to go in and say this, you're not creating these scenarios and acting like you have to be a certain way. I've got an amazing business consultant, Josh Levy, and this is one of the things that Josh has, would teach me all the time. And so my company is 100th Monkey. I used to call it 100th Monkey Media. And then a gentleman reached out to me with really a scary letter that was basically like, I'm taking you, Monkey Media and Media Monkey. I've trademarked it and done. And he was like, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I called Josh. I was like, oh my gosh, Josh, I don't know what to do. I'm really scared. This guy, and I'm like thinking I got to show up all businesswoman, tough lady. Yeah, I'm gonna get my lawyer on you kind of thing. And he's like, no, just be Mich. So I called this gentleman and I was like, hi, I'm Mich, and you'd sent me this email. And okay, so your email really, really freaked me out, and I'm a little scared right now. That's exactly what I said. And the guy went, oh, I wasn't trying to be a butthead. And so we talked about it. And I said, I will happily remove media from everything. Can you give me a month? Because I know there's going to be places that it's hidden that I haven't thought about. And then if you see it anywhere, please bring it to my attention. And I will, he's like, no, that's fine. That's fine. So I showed up as Mich. I told the truth. You really scared me. And instead of him being all like, I'm going to take you to court, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, let's work on this together. Let's get this done.
Wow. What a great story.
So it's amazing how we think we have to show up a certain way to be powerful when really we could just be ourselves and get a lot more done.
Well, and I'm going to murder this quote, right? It's everywhere, but
oh, good. Let's do it.
You know what? But if I weren't going to be me, I
like
would just,
it.
I wouldn't
like
say
it.
it unless I had it perfect. So I'm just going to throw it out there. But, it's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote of, you can't, snuff out the dark with more dark. It takes light to, overcome the dark. And I think maybe we've forgotten that.
Yeah.
Or it's easy. It's easy to go, gosh, all these revelations when we're speaking here. It's easy to stay with the dark because the hard work is going internally and working on the light and finding a way to get it to come out.
I look at it as we get comfortable with our discomfort. It's like the devil we know, right? And so since we know that world, it's real, when in all reality, all the cool stuff happens outside of your comfort zone. That's where all the cool stuff happens. But what you said about darkness too, yes, you want to shining the light on the darkness and actually dealing with the darkness is important. It really is important. And yes, eventually you want to, you want light to overcome that darkness. You want that darkness to be all light now. That's a lot of what we're working on with ourselves internally is eking out, getting rid of all that dark stuff, but then you got to put something else in there. So you got to put light in there, right? But not being afraid of that darkness, which, it's not going to be comfortable. Yes, you're going to feel pain, but what if that was the end of feeling that particular pain? What if you could just be done with it and not spinning, not being able to be transparent, not being able to show your true power, not being able to serve that in a way that you could serve if you would just be really you.
And I think back to, we talked about everything that's going on in the world. I'm sure there are some times where, yes, the militaristic, hardline approach, unfortunately, has to be taken. But if in general, this is what you did in that instance, pulled back and said, I'm not going to get my lawyer and fight back, and I'm going to meet hard with hard, which gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. If we dealt with people in a way that was more understanding, real, what are we really feeling? There's probably a lot of hardness and pain we could avoid.
Yeah. I would love us to get to that place where we no longer are like, let's go get our bombs out. It's terrible, but this is the world that we've created. We all had a part in it. So when people get upset about the way something is going on, it's a opportunity for you to look within and say, all right, what do I need to be working on right now? People get really riled up about things that are going on, and they take action, and we've got activists out there, but you also want those activists to be working on themselves as well, because we all know we can run around and yell as loud as we want. It doesn't mean people are going to hear us or change their opinion. You don't have that choice. That person has made the choice of their opinion and what have you, but you yourself can work on within. Just keep working within. It's that easy and it's that hard.
Right.
It sounds so simple. But
you made that sound so good.
It's right? I mean, if we want to have life mastery, you can write it out simply what it could look like, but it doesn't mean it's easy to get there.
Well, something I wrote earlier when we were talking about putting ourselves in situations that bring back, who do you want to attract? Make sure you are that. And I thought the whole build it and they will come, right?
Well, yeah. But build it and put it out there too, right? Because, I think about this with marketing. I've had so many times I've had inventors come to me with their awesome invention, and they have sunk their life savings into this invention, but then they forgot they had to market it and go tell people it exists, So it's like, build it, but then project that, show that, and then people are going to show up. You can attract people to you just by really being the person you are and showing that to everyone around you, then that's where all the lovely people that you want to hang out with come in.
And in my path over the last few years, what I found is you really need to sit back and what are your values? What are your passions? Not, and I think sometimes women have a tendency to do this, right? We saw in the magazines and we're told who we should be.
Yeah.
Mom, model. It's never going to happen here. Different things. But it's not who I am. It's, when I tell people, it's like, wow, I remember my freshman year in high school, this kid because we were both kids, but he's like, I'm going to call you Smiley. He's like, because you're always smiling. And I thought along the way, how did I not recognize that or lose that? That's what I need to be projecting in the world. I love learning and growing and sharing and being positive. I love being by myself too. All of that's okay, but getting back to when you're just kicking butt, no matter where you're at and you're having a great time with it, who are you being?
Yeah.
And align with those deep core values with everything you're doing in life.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes we don't know who we really are. You have to uncover some things, because there's been a lot projected upon you that, and it's so confusing, right? I mean, oh my goodness gracious, the 20s, just what the hell, and so you have this all this confusing things are happening in your world. And then little by little you start to, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that anymore. Who am I really? What am I really about? And and I feel like that's like how 100th Monkey is. It's like in the beginning I was just like, oh, social media is so cool, so fun, want to do it. Yeah, I love this stuff. I'm gonna get in there and make this business happen. Wow, entrepreneur. Whew, that is a tough go. It is not for everybody, but for me, I felt like becoming an entrepreneur it made me be better on every level, because it isn't just business. It hits you personally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's like everything. It's like, you don't need a self-help book. Just go start a business and be really dedicated to making it work. But the thing about it is that as I've grown over the years, now I'm starting to really know who I am. I really get the person I am, and look what's happened. I've always felt like I was a healer, but here I went to become a marketer, but here I am now healing through a marketing company. It ends up happening at some point if you just keep working on it, and it doesn't have to look like anything else. It can totally be what you want it to look like.
Well, yeah, you're bringing you to the table. And
Yeah.
so if you're different, by nature, how you build it is going to be different.
Yeah.
Which is good and okay.
And that's okay. You can be, my daughter, I've talked to her about, you get to make your life look how you want it to look. Like, really decide what you don't have to go with tradition or what society tells you. You can make it look how you want it to look, which we all go through a time where I have to be this way because society has told me. But boy, the sooner you can get out of that and just start building how you want to build, I'm divorced, and after my divorce, I had to really sit back and go, what do I want my life to look like now? Do I want to pursue a relationship and get married again? What do I really want? And it took me a couple of years to really get to this place where I was like, no, I like living alone, but I want I want people that I can be really intimate with, that I can talk through the really tough stuff. And I've attracted those people to my world. So I feel so blessed right now. I'm like, wow. And it didn't look like how society would have wanted it to look. Because believe me, I had friends who were like, when are you ready to date? I'm like, I don't know that I'm thinking that through, It all looks different than what I expected, but it's perfect. It's exactly what I needed in my life, how my life looks now. So it's okay to just really actually do what you feel is best for you.
Best for you. Try it on. Get outside your comfort zone, despite someone maybe telling you, oh, that's your cute little girl. Sure, social media will be important one day.
Right. Well, and I mean, even though I do, transparency here. There are times where I'm like, Josh, I need you to come with me on this particular sales meeting because I just know this person needs a guy in the room. And, that's what we do, because sometimes it's hard for people to see through cute little Mich exterior, that she really knows what the heck she's talking about. This woman's got it going on when it comes to marketing. If you can't see through the exterior, sometimes you need to have somebody help them see it.
So instead of you changing who you are and coming in and wearing a high-powered suit,
exactly,
and putting a wig back on and showing up as they would expect a good marketer to show up. Mm-hmm. You said, who can I bring along with me as an ally?
Yeah. Who can I bring with me that is going to help you see this is what Mich is, and that's a beautiful thing. And even though Josh will be like, oh, that just sucks that we have to do this. I'm like, but we do. And that's okay. We have figured this out, that sometimes Josh needs to point out to that man over there that Mich really knows what the heck she's doing, and they're in good hands, and everything's going to be fine.
And that, gosh, it gets to the heart of a lot of what we do with this podcast. Is some people will say, well, it's all about women, or it's just, oh, this is a women feminist complain, whatever thing. And it's not. It takes all of us to open up and help each other out, whether it's old and young and old, or, male, female helping male. I mean, there's times where I walk into a room with potential clients and I can tell they wanted to connect with a female. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just breaking down all those barriers of, you could look at that situation and say, well, I don't want to work with them. What a jerk. They don't want to see through my personality to see all my skills and abilities. And that might be the case if it was probably too awful.
Well, sure. But I also think that sometimes, people, again, they don't know their own biases. Mm-hmm. They're not even aware of their own biases. And so I look at it as, okay, I'm going to help you understand, through the good work I do for you, the biases you may already have. And again, we have to look at the business world was built by men. Now women are coming more and more, to the table. And so all of us are figuring out now, what does business look like now? And in all reality, I know the female power, and it's great, but what we are striving for is the balance of the masculine and feminine energies. That's what we need. We don't need one over the other. You have an imbalance. There's a reason why we have to not be like, oh, I'm going to bash men. It's like, no, men, let's figure out how we're going to make this all work and balance this out.
Right. Your skills in certain arenas will do far better than mine, and vice versa. So we need each other. And I had written down earlier something you said, not related to this, but it's everything. Life is a dance.
Yeah.
It's the push and the pull and the turn here and the throw you across the room one way and you get back up. And that's how it is when my husband and I dance together.
This past weekend, we have in St. Louis, we have the St. Louis Flamenco Society, and I had this woman on my podcast, Maricel, and they had an event this weekend, and I got to watch this beautiful flamenco, and man, you want to see power. Flamenco dancing is so it's just powerful. You walk out and you're like, I'm going to get some castanets. I need to walk around with those in my house right now. It's so beautifully powerful how flamenco shows up. And I was thinking, man, I'm going to wake up every day just doing a flamenco dance.
Are you doing that?
I should. I mean, I went to school in Spain for a year, and we took a flamenco dance class one time, and the only thing I remember about it was pick the apple, eat the apple, and throw it away. And I was like,
I like that. I dancing lessons would be in my cards one day in the future, just to become, because there's a beauty in that power.
Oh yeah.
And there's also a beauty and a power in, softer ballet dancing, or I don't know what would be considered softer dancing, but
yeah, but that's tough stuff. They make it look all graceful and beautiful, but my gosh, what that body goes through to get that.
There's a power and strength, and I have never thought of this analogy before, but if you think of both styles of dancing, one probably looks more powerful, but it takes a lot of fluid motions to get it. The other one probably looks more fluid and soft, but the strength and the power that you need underlying to be able to make it come that way.
Hold yourself up on your toes. Oh, ouch.
One style of dance is not worse than the other. It just maybe for that instance, that style, what seems to come across as softer is better, and that style of harder. And we all carry our different styles, whether it's gender, age, personality, and the styles aren't necessarily bad or good. But if a ballet, wow, this is really working out in my head right as I'm speaking on the thing.
I'm listening.
I know.
With you here.
Like, this is pretty good. The ballet, a ballet dancer, if they tried to do flamenco, it's not going to work. Know your power and your passion and get really good at that. And the flamenco, same thing. And same as your personality and business.
Appreciate all of it, right? Appreciate how everybody is coming in and showing who they are and what, this is my gift. This is what I can do.
And how boring would it be if you only saw the same dance all the time?
Oh my gosh. Whenever there's people that are like, I want everybody to be like me, I'm like, really? That seems so boring. I mean, don't you want everybody to be different? I mean, that's what makes life so interesting is that beautiful difference that we get to experience in other people. Like, embrace it, learn from it, be curious about it, which brings me back. I mean, that's why I do TEDx. I'm so curious. I get to meet these amazing people that just satisfy that curiosity of, really, what do you do? Why? How does that work? What an interesting thought. Oh my gosh, let's make a TED Talk.
A lot of them probably go, what? What do you mean?
There's a lot of people it's on a bucket list for a lot of people. I think that the big thing is just really, really understanding what a TED Talk. And Chris Anderson, who is the head of TED, he has a great book about TED Talks, and I would really recommend people read that before they think they have a TED Talk, because a lot of people really do think they have one, but they don't. And a lot of people do think it's the personal story. Again, the personal story comes into play, but it may not necessarily be the talk. So, and again, it might, but far and few between. There are personal stories that are talks, but it's a great book. If you really have it in your mind that I believe I have a TED Talk in me, read this book and then spend a lot of time thinking about the big idea, because that is when we hold auditions, or we'll do a call for submissions, probably sometime in January, and then we'll audition in March. And when that submission comes in, the people that are so concise, like within a paragraph or two, can tell you exactly what their idea is and why it's important. Those are the people that are going to get called to the audition.
Wow. Good information.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, that's May and October of every year. So they could read the book. They could watch videos to see how good TED Talks go, if that's something they're interested in. And those tips you just said have a really clear, concise point. And it's yes, there's a personal side, but personal story, but how are you using that personal story to change thinking, play with our brain, do something positive or growth oriented in that way.
It's fun stuff, Cynthia.
What a story, and what a, so far, just life path. I'm sure at 20 something you probably had no idea.
No idea. I will tell you that so the way that I was introduced to Steve Summers was through his brother, and his brother Bob, and I had seen TED Talks, and I kept thinking, there's something there for me, but I didn't put a story around it. I didn't decide because it would have been easy for me to say, I will be doing a TED Talk one day. And that would have, if I would have just that's the goal, that's my aspiration, I could have completely missed that, this was going to come into my world. And Bob called me one day and was like, hey, my brother Steve is thinking about bringing TEDx to St. Louis, and I thought of you. And I'm like, you were supposed to think of me. I was the exact person you were supposed to think of. I knew I would be doing something with this someday. So you're not putting a story around it, just like letting it unfold before you, which is, again, hard. We have our goals, right? But also be willing to take the detours and, and then to change the goal, to at one point go, oh, that wasn't my goal. Oh, this was my, okay, now I see how this all fits together.
So I think it's a great way to come back to think, okay, Mich has so much going on. How do we find her, the marketing business? She's doing some, we're not going to call it coaching, maybe personal internal transformation. Helping with,
yeah, thank you.
Well,
I like it. That'll be my tagline.
The TED Talk, all of these things. How can people find you to work with you in different ways?
Well, I am just about everywhere, but LinkedIn is great. Find me on LinkedIn. There are not a lot of people. I mean, there's not many people that have the name Mich, so I'm pretty easy to find. MICH, short for Michelle, in case you're wondering. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I mean, I love LinkedIn. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn, and I meet a lot of people on LinkedIn. It's where we get most of our businesses from, LinkedIn. So it's one of my most favorite platforms.
And your podcast is posted on all the different podcast forums.
The podcast is on. So I do it live on Facebook and Instagram, but then we post it out there on all the different, Spotify and wherever. I mean, there's so many of them now. I can't even remember all of them. Apple, but it's called Mishmash. So MICHMASH, and I just really talk to people that are doing kind things, which is so easy for me to find people that do kind things. I'm happy to say so.
And that's good. That it's a good focus to have. Again, what energy do you want to attract? Put that energy out there.
There you go.
So much great stuff. I know I've learned a lot, and even my brain has worked through so many things already today. So
thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing and being so open and vulnerable and, stepping in at the last minute. And there were just so many great things that came from it. So thank you, Mich. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit SheLiftProject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.